On June 18, 1948, the music world was shaken by a rather extraordinary invention. On that day, in New York's Waldorf Astoria Hotel, Peter Goldmark and a team of Columbia engineers released the invention that did change our lives forever. And what was that invention? The long play record, known as the LP. While today's LP is fundamentally the same as Goldmark's original invention, the playback equipment in 1948 was anything like it is today. In fact, it would take another 60-plus years to get playback equipment of vinyl to the state it's in today. 34 years after the introduction of the LP, another team of engineers made another extraordinary invention that fundamentally changed music forever. That was, of course, in 1982, the compact disc. Now, those early compact discs are essentially the same as they are today, though the playback equipment is anything close to that. Today, that's all about to change. PS Engineering has found a way to uncover more musical information from the compact disc than any of us ever thought was possible. Finally, the promise of CD is here.
When I came into PS Audio as Director of Engineering, one of the first products I became familiar with was the Perfect Wave Transport. And it was remarkable for its time. However, it started to show some warts quickly, and we were never able to satisfy myself for how it was performing. And so there was always a challenge from the marketing and management at PS Audio to come up with the next iteration of Transport. Is what it took to come up with what I think is going to set the stage for how Transport's ought to run for quite a while.
Perfect Wave Transports. For the last 8 years, this has been the go-to transport, the player for high-resolution audio, for CDs, and we've learned a lot over the last 8 years. And we've been thinking over the last 8 years, how do we do this better? How do we take the core technology inside of the Perfect Wave Transport, which is called the digital lens, incorporate it into the next generation of player and really improve the sound of high-resolution audio? And I think what we've discovered is that the digital lens, the core technology inside of this, really is the key to taking CDs and closing the gap. And we've been able to do that in a spectacular way, one that I'm really, really excited to share with you in the DirectStream Memory Player. So when we take a product here, hey Roger, when we take a product like the DirectStream DAC, and we have finally the ability to, through I2S, to play DSD that's trapped in the SACD layer, that's really cool. But what I've heard in Music Room 1, I think, is astounding. And that is the level of CD, how much better that's gotten. Everybody I've taken into Music Room 1, I'll do a comparison. Listen to the CD, now listen to the high resolution version. The difference has gone like this.
When Paul and I first created the digital lens, what we started to realize was CDs put out bits, and bits should all sound the same, but as everyone now knows, we learned very quickly that that just wasn't the case. And it was a struggle at first to determine why the same bits don't sound the same when different cables with different interfaces with different connectors. And what the industry learned pretty quickly was that it's not just the bits, it's the timing of the bits is important.
They say timing is everything, and certainly in digital audio, that is true. It's something we've learned over the years with all our work on the digital lens, on the Perfect Wave Transport Memory Player, and now, after 8 years of research and work, on the DirectStream Memory Player. But one of the things that still astounds us is how critical timing, jitter, power supplies, and everything that we work so hard at getting right is to CDs? And that tends to be a mystery.
If I had to guess as to why we've been able to narrow the gap between the audio quality we get with CDs and the audio quality that we get with the higher resolution formats, I would have to say that it's the lower sample rate is even more critical for the timing and for the jitter and the other parameters than the higher resolution formats are. So by all the details and the close attention to the design of the timing and the jitter and the noise and all those other secondary effects, we've been able to bring the performance from CDs much, much closer to that of the higher resolution formats than they ever have been.
I didn't think we could do it, honestly. The perfect wave transport was so good on CDs that our hopes to gain something were really very much in the background. I mean, we really struggled and worked hard on getting DirectStream Memory Player's high resolution performance as good as it could possibly get, and that's what we focused on. The fact that we got CDs to sound like they did, that was more of a gift than anything else.
Getting better performance with more bits is easy. Getting better performance with higher sample rates is easy. And we've all seen that go from 44 kilohertz to now it's 384 kilohertz sample rates with 32 bits of resolution. And it's easy to make improvements with those kinds of changes. But how do we make CDs sound better? How do we make SACDs sound better? We know that bits are bits, but we know that the timing of the bits is critical. We've learned that the timing of the clocks gets corrupted by noise on the power supply, so now we have separate regulators just for the clock crystals, and then separate regulators just for the latches that drive the outputs, and separate regulators for the rest of the circuitry. And all of that has contributed to making the performance with the older formats, the CD and the SACDs, better than anything we've ever made.
One of the core technologies found in many of our digital products is called the digital lens, something that Bob Stather and I worked on back in the 1990s. And essentially it's a memory that all the bits are placed in, which gives us time to output it perfectly with a low jitter clock. That technology is still the basis of DirectStream Memory Player.
On the perfect wave transport, our solution was to load a whole lot of the CD into a big chunk of memory, and that way we could take those bits out of memory at our leisure, so replay them at exactly the right time. And that was very successful. What we learned from that product was we really didn't need to take as much data as we did. You need to have data there when you need it. You need to be a little bit ahead. You need a little bit of a buffer, but you don't need a lot. And what we focused on with the DirectStream Transport Memory Player is to design the hardware and software in such a way that we've got just enough.
One of the parts of designing a new product that I always love and look forward to is something that our engineering staff kind of dreads a little bit. That's taking the final product, putting it into Music Room 1 and starting the listening process. And rarely do we ever put something in where it just works. It takes voicing, it takes time, and we have to tweak around with it. We have to try this and try that. And it's kind of a long process, but it's one that I love anyway.
The hardest part is that it has to sound better, and that's the biggest challenge as a design engineer. It's easy to put new chips in there, it's easy to put new features in, it's easy to use the latest, greatest, whatever that the manufacturers are coming out with. But making it sound better is difficult because sometimes it's difficult to know what makes it sound good in the first place. And we've learned a lot over the years about what techniques and practices produce good sound. But the biggest fear as a design engineer is always that, yeah, this is going to do cool things and it's going to look neat and it's going to use the latest, greatest stuff, but is it going to sound good? And sometimes we just don't know until we actually build it and try it. And in this case, we were very, very pleased that when we finally did get everything working, that put it in the sound room 1, and Paul listened to it and said, this just beats the Perfect Wave Transport, hands down.
We focused a lot on CD performance and just how great that is and how remarkable it is in DirectStream Memory Player. But we haven't really touched on one of its core abilities, and that is the ability to play the DSD layer long, locked, and encrypted onto SACD. Now, since the introduction of the SACD, Sony has kept that layer locked to external DACs. And now, for the first time in legal form, DirectStream Memory Player is able to extract the data, the pure DSD data, right off of the SACD layer and put it directly into an external DAC, like DirectStream.
Fortunately, with our discrete I2S interface, we were able to adapt that to have discrete DSD signals as well as discrete PCM signals on the data link. And that was enabled us to have, for the first time, a transport playing SACDs, streaming DirectStream DSD data to a separate DAC.
In order to do this and keep it legal, we've had to restrict it to PS Audio DACs. And what happens is these DACs do a handshake, and we verify that it's connected up to our DAC, that it will not be copied, and it'll only be enjoyed as Sony and its copyright had intended it to be listened to through a DAC. But that said, what you hear is not only remarkable, it may be the first time that you've actually heard what is on your SACDs. It certainly was for me.
When the DirectStream Memory Player project came to me, I was really excited because I am, at my heart, a design geek. I really care about the way things look, and I think that how things look are important to how things work. The old transport was functional, but I thought with this new memory player we could do a lot better. I wanted to make the GUI more clean, really intuitive to navigate for people who are comfortable with mobile devices and touchscreens these days, and also to do a better job of featuring the really graphic and colorful cover art that we're able to pull down for the discs. One of the things that we knew we needed to fix is make the track information, the album information, readable from across the room, because most people aren't listening to their music with their face 6 inches from the display. So you can see that we're able to feature the cover art a lot bigger. That looks really nice. And if we move into the full information screen, the track title, and really the whole font is just much easier to read because it's so much bigger. You can see that they only give me a prototype to work with here at work, but can't wait to see how sharp the finished devices look.
We started development on the DirectStream Transport about 2 years ago, and in that time we've had to do a couple redesigns and lots of small changes in order to make this be the best transport we could design. I'm pretty proud of the results. I think we've accomplished that goal of this being the best transport that could be made.